All right, so today we are diving deep into this interview with Dr. Joe Dispenza that you shared with me, all about rewiring your brain. I mean, who doesn't want to rewire their brain for success and happiness?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the ultimate goal, right? And Dr. Dispenza, he's like this rock star in the world of neuroscience and epigenetics.
He is. And you know what I think is so cool about his work? He even brings in quantum physics to explain the power of our thoughts.
Yeah. It's not just like think positive and everything will be okay. Like he's going deep into how our thoughts actually shape our reality.
It's wild.
And one of the things he said that really stuck with me was that the most beautiful and at the same time the most dangerous thing is a repetitive thought.
Oh, absolutely. It can work for you or against you.
That's like a double-edged sword.
For sure. And I think the easiest way to kind of like visualize it, right? Imagine every time you have a thought, it's like walking through a field. If you keep taking the same path, eventually you wear down this trail, right? Like a clear path. That's what's happening in our brains. So those repetitive thoughts, they're literally creating these neural pathways. They get stronger and stronger. So if you're constantly in that negative thought loop, like I'm not good enough, you're basically building a superhighway in your brain for those beliefs.
Okay, that makes total sense, but then how do we stop? Like, how do we get off that superhighway, especially when it comes to those negative thoughts and feelings that just seem to like take on a life of their own?
Yeah, and you feel like you can't escape them.
Exactly.
It's tough. Dispenza talks about how often, like at the root of those negative feelings, are these past experiences, even traumas.
Trauma, yeah.
That we've stored in our bodies.
It's like our bodies get stuck in this time warp, reliving these experiences, even if they happened years ago. I could think about like an argument I had last year and I can still feel it.
Oh, tell me about it.
That like, not in my stomach.
Because your body, it's almost like it's wired to react to those memories as if they're happening right now.
Right.
So the more we kind of like replay those negative experiences in our minds, the more we're reinforcing those pathways. It's like you're strengthening those connections.
So we're like reinforcing that negativity. So how do we break free from that?
Yeah.
Because it just seems like we're constantly battling against like years of these ingrained patterns.
Yeah, and it's a journey, right? It's not
Yeah.
like a quick fix, but I think the first step is recognizing those patterns are there, and then you can start to choose a different path.
Okay, so how do we choose a different path?
Well, I think that Jay Shetty's breakdown of the 3 thought modes, which he pulled from Vedic tradition, makes a lot of sense here.
Oh yeah, he was talking about ignorance, passion, and goodness.
Exactly.
And how those like play out in our relationships.
Yes. So, you know, like, I'm not worthy of love. That's like classic ignorance mode.
Yeah.
Or like the flip side, the passion, which can be a little delusional. Oh, I can make anyone fall in love with me.
Right, right.
Neither of those are going to lead to like healthy, fulfilling relationships.
So are you saying we need to like shift into goodness mode?
Yes. And Shetty describes it as like consciously being committed to cultivating love. It's about recognizing that we actually do have the power. We can choose our thoughts and our actions, even when it comes to something like love.
And that's where Dispenza's work comes in, right?
Yeah.
Because he's saying like, if we can change our thoughts, we can change our reality.
Absolutely. And he talked about how our brains, they don't always know the difference between something that's real and something we've just vividly imagined.
Yeah.
He calls it mental rehearsal. So when you vividly imagine yourself like thinking, feeling, acting in alignment with your goals, your brain's like, okay, this is happening.
Interesting.
And it starts creating new pathways.
So to put it in like relationship terms, if I'm constantly imagining myself in this loving, supportive partnership, I'm basically like prepping my brain for that reality.
Exactly. You're rewiring your subconscious.
Wow. That's pretty powerful. Okay, but how do we actually know like what's happening in our brains when we're doing this rewiring work?
Well, he talked about brainwaves, right?
Yeah, he mentioned brainwaves.
And how different brainwave states can impact our ability to actually reprogram our minds. He broke it down like beta waves, that's your thinking mind.
Okay.
So right now, we're in beta, alert, chatting.
Right.
Alpha's more relaxed. It's like that state before you fall asleep. You're more open to suggestion. And that's where a lot of these thought reprogramming techniques can be super effective.
So it's like we're accessing the control panel kind of our subconscious.
Totally. And then there's theta, which is even deeper.
Deeper.
Like deep meditation.
Wow.
This is where Dispenza says the most profound shifts can happen.
And there was something about a gamma state too.
Yeah, gamma, this is like your brain's superpower mode. You know, it's like heightened awareness, insight, you're going beyond your normal limitations. And here's the thing, we can learn to access these deeper brainwave states, through things like meditation, breath work.
Okay, so it's like we're training our brains to tap into those states where we can actually make those changes. But how does that translate into everyday life? It's not like we can just slip into meditation every time something stressful happens, or can we?
Well, I wish it were that easy, right?
Right.
Dispenza uses this analogy of training an animal.
Okay.
And I think it connects with what Jay Shetty was saying about disciplined practice. Just like if you're training a dog, it takes time. You need consistency, you need patience. Our brains are kind of the same way. It takes time to rewire those neural pathways.
So we need to approach with that same kind of dedication.
Definitely. And compassion.
Compassion, yeah.
Dispenza talks a lot about being kind to yourself in the process. It's not about how many times you fall off the bike. It's about getting back on.
I like that because we're all going to fall.
Oh, yeah.
We're human. It's recognizing it, not judging ourselves for it, but just, okay, how do we get back on?
Exactly. And that's where, meditation, mindfulness practices, they really help with that. They help us build that awareness muscle, so we can catch ourselves when we're falling back into those old patterns.
Which kind of leads to another point that I thought was interesting, was this idea that most of us, we rely on external things to regulate our emotions.
Oh, at a time.
Instead of realizing we have that power within ourselves.
It's we outsource our emotional well-being, right?
Right.
Relying on food or TV or social media, even our relationships to make us feel better. But we can cultivate those positive states within ourselves.
And still looking outside.
Yes. And this is where it gets really cool because Dispenza's research shows that when we do tap into that power within, some incredible things start to happen.
Okay, this is the mind-blowing part.
Right. And not just emotionally, but physically too.
Tell me more. What kind of physical changes?
So, remember we were talking about the brainwave states?
Yeah.
He found that when people were able to sustain those positive emotional states for a longer period of time, their brains actually started to function differently, especially in that gamma range.
Wow.
Remember, superpower mode.
Right, yeah.
And here's the key. Their bodies started to respond as if those desired states were already their reality.
Wait, so you're saying our thoughts are literally sending messages to ourselves?
Yeah.
Changing our biology.
It's crazy, right?
That's wild.
Yeah, and the research it's incredible. They saw shifts in hormone levels, gene expression, even the energy in the room changed.
No way.
Yeah, people were literally changing their biology by changing their internal state.
That's incredible. But how's that even possible? I know, it's what is the mechanism there?
Right.
It's still a very new area of study.
Right.
But Dispenza, he believes that when we shift that energy, that focus away from, the old patterns, the fear, the stress, the limitations, we open ourselves up to this whole world of possibilities that honestly we might not have even known existed.
So it's not just thinking positive thoughts. We're talking about a fundamental shift in consciousness.
Absolutely.
That can transform every area of our lives.
Upgrading your operating system, going from this old clunky version to the latest, most amazing version, capable of things you never thought possible.
So we're trading in our old flip phone for the latest smartphone. But how do we make this real in our lives? Because it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of it all,
right.
But then real life happens.
Yeah.
And we fall back into those old patterns. Dispenza, he actually addresses that and he says it's not enough to just have those peak experiences, those moments of bliss, whether it's in meditation or just a really good day.
Yeah.
He says the key is to integrate it into our everyday life.
Okay, so it's I can't just eat one healthy meal and then,
Exactly.
be all right, I'm good, I'm healthy now.
One salad does not a healthy lifestyle make.
Exactly.
He gave this example of people with chronic health conditions, right? And they start meditating, eating well, doing all the right things.
Right.
And they start feeling better, but then they go back to the doctor and the scans are nope, still there.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. It's that thing of what's the point?
Right.
I'm doing all this work, but nothing's actually changing.
And that's where people get discouraged, right?
Yeah.
And he said, often what's happening is these people, he'll have this amazing meditation, they're feeling super connected, their heart's open, their brain's in that blissful gamma state, they feel amazing, healed even, but then Life happens.
Yeah.
They go back to their routines, their jobs, their families, and they get swept back into those old patterns of stress.
Right. So it's like they have their 1 hour of bliss,
Right.
and then 16 hours of like stress and reacting to emails and traffic. Just like,
It's like trying to put out a fire with a teaspoon of water.
so how do we get that fire hose? Because I can't like quit my job and meditate 24/7.
No, of course not. But we can start by like bringing more mindfulness into those everyday moments. It's about catching yourself when you're getting triggered
Okay.
and choosing a different response.
Instead of like firing off that angry email, I take a breath and I'm like, okay,
Exactly.
connect with my heart.
Yeah, and it's not about being perfect. It's just like you're making progress. You're consistently like reinforcing those new neural pathways. It's like, remember his analogy, learning to play an instrument. At first, it takes so much effort and focus. But the more you do it, it's like it becomes more natural, more effortless.
So we're training ourselves to like respond from that more heart-centered place. And that actually then creates the changes in our biology.
That's the idea.
Wow.
And the research is there. Dispenza found that as people became more adept at like regulating their internal state, bringing those, higher vibrations into their daily life, their health conditions actually started to improve. It was like they were shifting the energy in their bodies and healing themselves like from the inside out.
Now that's what I'm talking about. That's empowering. It's
Yeah.
like we hold the keys
We do.
to our own well-being, our own healing, our own happiness.
And what's really cool? It's not just us. It's like it extends even beyond ourselves. Remember he talked about those random event generators?
Oh yeah, like those like super high-tech coin tossers.
Exactly. Like, can you influence a coin toss with your mind? And he found that groups of people meditating together could actually influence the outcome.
That's wild.
And what's interesting is the degree of influence, it correlated with their heart coherence. So like when people came together with this shared intention and a feeling of love and compassion, the results were even stronger.
So we're not just talking about like transforming ourselves, but like the power of our collective consciousness to actually like make a difference in the world.
It's amazing. Right?
Yeah.
It's blown my mind.
And Dispenza, he believes this is just the beginning. He's like, you are greater than you think, more powerful than, more unlimited than you could ever imagine.
I love that. So to everyone listening, remember, we have the power within us to create the lives we want, to heal ourselves and to heal the world. And it starts with that one thought, that one choice, that commitment to showing up for ourselves and for each other every single day. So keep rewiring, keep exploring, keep believing in those infinite possibilities. And until next time, keep diving deep.